Matrix. What's going on, guys? Matrix Unplugged, another episode coming up, you guys. Sorry for taking a long time to get this out. My SHAREfactory's been acting up, but without further ado, let's jump straight into it. We're going to go ahead and hop straight into stats this week. A lot of turnover this year, a lot of new guys coming in. Thank you guys for joining the league. Let's see who's leading this year's stats. Alright, so leading the passing yards for the NFL, we got Dwayne Haskins Jr. with 3,100 yards, followed by Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, and Deshaun Watson. Looking at passing touchdowns, still leading, you got Dwayne Haskins Jr. with 29, Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, Steve Phillip, Derek Carr rounding out your top 5 passing touchdown leaders. Moving on to rushing yards, Rashad Penny is leading the league with 1,100 yards, followed by Jones II, Gurley II, Mixon, and Kamara. Moving on to rushing touchdowns, you got Rashad Penny leading the league with 16 touchdowns, Joe Mixon in second with 15, followed by Hatchett, Gurley, and Saquon Barkley. Moving on to receiving yards, Julio Jones leading the league with 1,100 yards, followed by Stephon Diggs, Marquise Brown, Robbie Anderson, and Richardson Jr. With touchdowns in the receiving categories, you got Julio Jones, Robbie Anderson, Miles Boykin, Nelson, and Richardson Jr. rounding out your top 5. As far as the defensive side of the ball, you got Roquan Smith leading the league with tackles, followed by Cole, Payne, Matthew, and Warner. Moving on over to sacks, of course, Khalil Mack leading the league with sacks with 19, followed by Jermaine Grace, Brian Burns, Sweet, and Watson. Moving on over to interceptions, your leaders in the league are Micah Hyde, Allen, Odom, Johnson III, and Nicholson. 10, 9, and then like a 7-way tie for 7 interceptions. The season-long awards, let's jump straight into it, see who's on track to get MVP and all those good awards. So you got Lamar Jackson leading the race for MVP, followed by Joe Mixon, Rashad Penny, Steve Phillip, and Dwayne Haskins Jr. On the AFC side for the Offensive Player of the Year, you got Joe Mixon leading it, followed by Lamar Jackson and Ezekiel Elliott. On the AFC Defensive Player of the Year, you got Jermaine Grace leading it out, followed by Lee with the Chiefs, Jadeveon Clowney, Cunningham. For Offensive Rookie of the Year, my man Steve Phillip leading it. Then you got Hatchett, Mullins, and Yates following close behind. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Joey Beach, also with me in the Jets, followed by Keshawn Vaughn, Shepard, and Gunn. Moving on to Best QB for the AFC, again, Action Jackson, Lamar Jackson, followed by Phillip, Derek Carr, Patrick Mahomes, and Baker Mayfield. Best running back in the AFC, led by Joe Mixon, followed by Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara. Moving on, best wide receiver in the AFC, my man Robbie Anderson, followed by Miles Boykin, Nelson, Marquise Brown, and Dede Westbrook. Best offensive lineman in the AFC, looking like old man Rodney Hudson, leading that out there with the Raiders, followed by Yanda. Best defensive lineman, Joey Bosa for the AFC, followed by Lawson, Garrett, Clark. Best linebacker in the AFC, just like last year, Jermaine Grace leading it, followed by Lee with the Chiefs, Jadeveon Clowney. Best DB in the AFC, Denzel Ward out there with the Browns, followed by Chris Harris Jr. and Bradbury. Moving over to the NFC side. In the NFC side, you got Rashad Penny leading as the Offensive Player of the Year, followed by Gurley and Jones. Defensive Player of the Year for the NFC, leading it is Khalil Mack, followed by Wagner, Griffin, and Burns. NFC Offensive Rookie of the Year, Ricky White with the Packers, Bowden with the Vikings, Jones with the Buccaneers, and then you've got Parson with the Cowboys. Defensive Rookie of the Year for the NFC, you got Dante Watson with the Buccaneers, followed by Beeson, Brown II, and Jones. Best QB for the NFC, Dwayne Haskins Jr., no surprise there, followed by DeForest Jackson, Goff, and Wilson. Best running back for the NFC, looking like Rashad Penny is going to take that home, followed by Gurley and Jones. Best wide receiver for the NFC, Julio Jones, followed by Stephon Diggs, Richardson Jr., and Moore with the Panthers. For best offensive lineman for the NFC, looking like Travis Frederick's going to take that home, followed by Zach Martin, Marpay, and Kelsey. Best defensive lineman for NFC, looking like Fletcher Cox, followed by Aaron Donald, Tack McKinley, DeMarcus Lawrence. Best linebacker for the NFC, Khalil Mack, as usual, no change there, followed by Griffin, Wagner, Burns, Sweet. And then the best DB for the NFC, Micah Hyde with the Lions, followed by Ricardo Allen, Odom, Patrick Peterson. Now let's go ahead and move on into the standings for this season. Leading the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, followed closely by the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns and Steelers, they're totally out of it this year. Go ahead and pack it up, go home. AFC South, Texans leading it with 9-2, followed by the Jaguars, Titans, Colts. Texans already had this thing wrapped up. The rest of you guys are bums. Get in the lab. AFC East, you got the Jets at 7-3, but you do got the Bills fighting there at 5-5. Kind of tight here. You might see the Bills make some noise here, but let's get it together. AFC East. In the AFC West, you got the Raiders at 8-3, Chiefs at 6-5, Chargers at 5-5. This is going to be a pretty good race to round out the season here. Looking like a pretty solid division. Moving on to the NFC North, you got the Vikings at 6-4, Lions at 6-5. It's going to be a nice two-way race there. Packers and Bears, you're both bums. In the NFC South, this is one of the toughest divisions we have. Buccaneers at the top, 9-1, followed by the Falcons and Panthers for a tie, with the Saints right behind them. NFC East, you got the Redskins at 7-3, Giants at 6-4, Eagles 5-5, Cowboys at 3-7. Tough division. Redskins might hold this one down. And last but not least, the NFC West, you got the Rams at 8-2, Seahawks at 7-4. Awesome division. Very good battle every year with these two guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry I got this out so late. I promise next week's is going to be better. I had a lot going on. My fiance was involved in a hit and run. A lot of stuff going on at work. So just take this for the time being. It's a short video. Watch it, pause it, do what you got to do. Play your games. Keep up with the league. Thank you guys for being in. Tune in next week.